woke up this morning and there was a comment on one of my YouTube videos from a woman who was like, these are great. I'm learning a lot about dysfunction in a relationship, but what does a healthy relationship look like? And I kind of smiled and I wrote back to her, I'm like, great minds think alike, because today's video that I'm about to shoot is on that topic specifically. What's the difference between codependence and interdependence? Or another way of saying it is, what's the difference between a dysfunctional and a healthy relationship? So welcome back. Today, that's what we're going to talk about, whether you want to term it codependence and interdependence or healthy versus dysfunctional. I'm going to talk about the difference, and so you have an idea of what it might look like to have a healthy relationship. Because as I say all the time, all the models we've ever seen, any of us that, whether you're a year old or 100 years old, our society has only shown us a fantasy. It's not what true love looks like. It's codependence. All right, everything we see in movies, TV, everything, the model we've been shown is codependence. There is not a single person on this planet who is not codependent. It's not possible. All right? And so that's the first thing we have to recognize is every one of us is codependent because the parenting and relationship dynamics we've been shown for the last really several hundred years, really in existence, is a codependent model. We've never learned about these dynamics. I mean, codependence wasn't even discovered until the last 50 years. So, we're just evolving on relationship dynamics and everything, okay? So, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be codependent? Well, the first thing to recognize about codependence is it's the loss of individuality. Think about the messages we've heard about love. Is that you need to give up everything for me. And so do you see what this is? This is the codependent model. This is the love model we've all been taught. Think of The Bachelor, think of the Kardashians, think of every reality TV show, anything that has to do with relationships, relationship coaching, all of it. In essence, what they're all advocating is, these are the circles represent two individual people, and love is here. Now, most relationship coaches, what they're teaching you is how to manipulate the codependent person to get them in here. Think about it. Think about all their teaser videos. How to get the man, how to get the woman, right? Well, do you hear that? That's a manipulation, And so I love relationship coaches. They are master salespeople at teaching you how to manipulate other people to give up their life to love you. That's what they're teaching, okay? And not everyone, there are many great teachers, but the primary coaching model or primary relationship model is how to get somebody to give up their whole life and love you. Make you their king, make you their queen. Like, think of all of these messages we have of, The Bachelor and everybody, and women will go, until somebody gives up their life for me and notices I'm a queen, or, the man, I'm not going to take anything, my queen. Like, there are all these references that I have to be placed on this pedestal because of TV and movies, that somebody who truly loves me will give up everything. They'll always support me, right? What is that? That is the death of the person for the relationship. They must be dependent. And this person is demanding, you are codependent on me and what I need and meeting my needs and wants. So it is the complete loss of individuality, and it's the requirement of melting into one unified soul. Just think of marriages. A lot of people do that. They get the two candles that are intertwined and becomes one. Like, you're dying. I mean, that's a religious concept. It's the melting of two souls and all of that. Now, I get the basic idea of building a strong bond, but unfortunately, we don't make the distinction between no, that you don't want that level of toxicity to give up everything for somebody. I'm gonna prove to you why that concept isn't healthy in just a minute. Now, I'm going to go into more deeply what interdependence looks like and bring this back out in a minute. But the next thing I want to talk about that really shows the codependence in our culture is the use of really three words: should, or shouldn't, or could or couldn't. All right, really those four words. All right. So think about what happens in what most people will say in their posts about relationships or their even spoken reality TV, whatever it is. You should do this. You shouldn't do that. You could do this. You couldn't do that. Okay. So do you see what that means? If you should be this type of person, that's a denial of reality. Okay. Because that's a lack of acceptance for no, who this person is right now is this. And you're telling them, you should do this for me. Well, do you see what you're saying? If you ever use that phrase towards somebody, you should, or you could, or you shouldn't do that, or you couldn't do that. Do you see what you're saying to your partner is who you are in this moment? I don't accept truth. I refuse to accept the truth that you're incapable of it because your actions just showed me this is who you are, that you have chosen in this moment to be this person. But I'm demanding you be different than that. I will not accept reality. I will not accept you for who you are. You need to be right here, what I need. I'm going to ignore who you are. I'm going to ignore truth. I refuse to see the truth that your actions have shown me you're incapable of whatever it is I may desire. But I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept who you are and that this is the perfect imperfect nature of yourself, that maybe some days you can do a certain thing and other days you can't, or maybe every day you refuse to do it. Well, I'm going to refuse to accept that truth and I'm going to demand that you should or you shouldn't, and you live here. That is codependence. It is a person who's not in reality of who their partner is and they're demanding that they be this person and meet their needs. That is not love. That is not interdependence. That is dysfunctional. And so if you ever find yourself saying in a relationship, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, you could do this, you couldn't do that, any of that stuff, you need to pause and go, whoa. Why am I choosing to live in a fantasy? Why won't I accept reality of who my partner really is? This says a lot about me, because if I really want that, why did I pick this partner? Whew, boom. I need to take ownership that I chose this person. I'm not in truth and reality of what I really want in a relationship. That's not about my partner. My partner should or shouldn't change at all. Maybe I need to look at me and why I picked something that doesn't work for me. And I'm going to get to the proof of why that statement is so impactful when I get to the other side of interdependence. Now, the other thing to recognize in the whole culture of codependence and relationship, and again, I call this the Kardashian or the bachelor model, bachelorette model, is the belief that they need to have my back and support me at all times. Well, okay, I'll let you have that belief, but do you see what that means? If your demand, if you think that love is they should support you at all times, do you see what you're asking? And I'm going to use a very absurd analogy, but it drives home proof that you can't walk away from. It brings you into truth and reality, which is very important. If we want love, we have to be in truth. If somebody is supposed to support you at all times, what if you decided that you were going to start murdering people? I thought they're supposed to support you. And see, people go, well, that's absurd. I'd never do that. But that is what you're doing. You're saying when I act inappropriately, whether it was I drank too much or whatever, you still chose to go drink. Like when we make mistakes, we all make mistakes. We're perfectly imperfect. And so when we demand our partner has our back, do you see it? Like we have to take it to the extreme to bring, that's how dysfunctional codependence is we don't want to take ownership. We're not in reality. And so we're in the shoulds and coulds. And so to bring reality in, I have to use such an extreme example of, well, if they love me, they'd support me. And so I have to show up or show people, wait a minute, do you see when you make that demand, you're placing the responsibility on another person that even if your behavior is so obscene, they have to support you. Now you'll say, but I'd never do something that terrible. But you do things that are less than perfect. And true love is somebody who holds you accountable for your less than perfect behavior. All right? And so when we demand that our partner have our back all the time, to always support us and makes us a king or queen, all of these shoulds, we are not in reality of what we're asking, and we're not in reality of our own behavior. And that's the essence of codependence, is I refuse to take ownership of my behavior and the impact I'm having on others and the demands I'm placing on others. I'm expecting you to do something I won't do for myself. That's at the hallmark of codependence and a dysfunctional relationship, the inability to look at our part, all right? I did that video on the Tinder swindler, and it's very well received, but many people just, the only negative comments are those that don't want to take ownership for their side of the dynamic. They want someone else to be blamed for their choices. That is the hallmark of codependence, is an inability to accept truth and reality, that we are all perfectly imperfect. We make mistakes, and nobody gets in our life unless we allow it. We are responsible for that. And so if we see behavior in our partner that doesn't work for us, they should not change. They shouldn't do anything different. They are who we wanted them to be. What needs to change is our reality of, wow, I picked that. That's about me. They shouldn't change. They are who they were from the moment we met them. We just chose not to see it. And in most cases, we're like, I'll get them. I'll get them to join me here. I'll teach them not to do this anymore. I'll shame them. I'll control them. I'll manipulate. We always did something. We tried to manipulate them into here, whether we're in truth about that or not. And that's about us. And that's what moves us into interdependence. One is taking ownership. Now, here's the idea about interdependence. Do you see the arrows? Do you see this as relationship deposits? So you remember how I was describing in codependence, there's a demand that our partner join us here at all times. This is, you have to have my back and support me. Well, that means I have to give up my whole life because I'm always on guard. Because if I'm not here, you're going to reject me. You're going to pull out of the relationship because I should have known better. I should know what you want. I've been with you long enough. I've told you 1,000 times, you should know. You should read my mind. You should know this is what women want. You should know this is what men want. That's just so obvious. Do you hear? All of that's codependence. No, they shouldn't know it. They get to decide, all of us get to decide, and this is what a functional, healthy relationship is. It's the recognition that we are two perfectly imperfect individuals who at times, when it is in our best interest, or we have the reserves, we make relationship deposits where we join in this space. We join in this space when we share hobbies. We join in this space when we spend time together doing similar or dissimilar things. Like some days we may absolutely hate to go to the movies, but for whatever reason, we have done some things over here where our tank is full. And so we look at our partner and go, you know what? I'm going to make a deposit. I'm going to go to the movies with you tonight. That sounds fun to me. And so we can join authentically. Codependence says, I don't care that you don't want to go to the movies. We're in relationship. You should do this if you loved me. Do you hear how authoritative that is? And I can't find the right word. I'm thinking of a king, just the demand of, that request. That's not love. Well, if you love me, you should. Like that's what you'll hear. Do you hear how immature that is and how lacking in love that is? No. Each person gets to decide what works for them. We all have our own morals and values, needs and wants, negotiables and non-negotiables. And that's what a healthy interdependent relationship does. I talk about this concept in all of my relationship videos. If you have not sat down and done the work to lay out your morals and values, needs and wants, negotiables and non-negotiables, you have no shot in a relationship. I say this over and over, and I go check to see how many people have watched those videos. It's like 400. Like I've had millions of views of my videos, and I say over and over, you need to go to my playlist on YouTube and look for 3 videos. They all start out, Codependence Recovery, and then what is it? Understanding your morals and values, asking for your needs and wants, determining your negotiables and non-negotiables, something like that. But they all start out, Codependence Recovery. They're on my Codependence playlist. They should have millions of views. Like if you've watched my stuff, that you should do, and you want a relationship or you're in a relationship, like you have to go watch those. And they have like 400 views, or maybe it might be 1,000. But nobody watches them. And then they keep posting, why does my husband, why does my wife? Well, have you done that work? Do you see? There's your should and shouldn't. If that work hasn't been done, all you're going to create is a codependent relationship. Because an interdependent relationship recognizes when it works in my morals and values, when I have the reserves and it meets my needs and wants, and it doesn't go against my non-negotiable, I can make a contribution. I can make a relationship deposit here in this shared space. But my partner knows that if it goes against my morals and values, if I don't have the reserves in my needs and wants, and it is something that's non-negotiable, that if I join them in it, I will mistreat the heck out of them, because eventually, at some point, I'm going to throw it in their face. I'm going to make them pay for what I did for them. And think about it. Almost every single relationship ends with people saying, I did this for them, and I did this for them. I bent over backwards, and they wouldn't even do this for me. They didn't even recognize it. Well, do you hear what that is? All of that's codependence. All of that's manipulation. All of that is people going against their own morals and values, their own needs and wants. They didn't have the reserves, and they went against their non-negotiables. They made those should and shouldn't and could and couldn't deposits. They got out of reality. They lied to themselves and their partner, and they did this thing. They joined here, but they did it with an expectation. You owe me. And that's codependence. You owe me. I jumped in relationship circle. Think of The Bachelor. Think of the Tinder swindler. Think of all of it. I did this. I gave you money. You owe me. I showed you love. I put up with your ex. You cheated on me and I came back into here. You owe me. No, they don't. You made that choice. You're responsible. Why did you give yourself away and go against your morals and values, your needs and wants, and your non-negotiables? That's a choice you made. You did that to yourself. Why? Why do you keep hurting yourself? Why won't you go do the work? Why won't you go heal your childhood trauma that created your addiction to these negative, dysfunctional relationships? They're not responsible for that. That's our job. That's an interdependent person who walks into a relationship and says, look, I'm perfectly imperfect. There are times I'm going to lie to you and manipulate you. And if you don't think you lie and if you don't think you manipulate, you are lying and manipulating. We're human. We will all. None of us can see ourselves clearly. That's the essence of being perfectly imperfect. I don't know that people get that. The reason we're all perfectly imperfect is to remind us that we're human, that we all lie, that we all manipulate, that we all have darkness in us. And it's okay. It's okay. And the secret to life is to quit hiding all of this, but to bring it to the front. Think of what was our frustration with Bill Clinton. Not that he cheated, it's that he lied about it. Because we've all cheated in some way, maybe not on a spouse, but we've cheated ourselves or a friendship, or we've all done little things like that where we've broken vows, where we've been imperfect. And all we've ever wanted from somebody is for them to go, I was imperfect. As soon as they do that, we let them off the hook. It's the lie. Well, why are we doing that to ourselves? And so, again, because our culture teaches us codependence and that it's not okay to be truthful, that it's not okay to experience our imperfections, our humanness, we place the should and shouldn'ts on others. We are out of reality. We are not in truth, that we all lie, that we all manipulate, that we all have darkness. We are all perfectly imperfect. Interdependence recognizes that. And so some days we turn to our partner and go, look, I don't know that I can do it because I think I'm going to manipulate you. Like, I really want to go to this, but I also really don't want to go. But I want to do it so that eventually I can throw it in your face and maybe we can have intimacy later tonight. Like, that's really the only reason I want to go, is that hopefully if I do it, you'll recognize that, you know, how much I hate doing this for you and hate going to this place, and that maybe I'll get lucky later. Men, if you're like, you know, that's true. That's why we do it. Women, why did you do it? Because you wanted the pat on the back. You wanted to be recognized, whatever it is. If you've ever brought up how you did something for somebody and didn't get recognized, you kept score of it, or you have resentment that you didn't get it back, it's proof. You lied to them and you manipulated them. You lied to yourself and you manipulated yourself. And so again, to have interdependence, we need to know our morals and values, our needs and wants, our negotiables and non-negotiables. The final thing, when it comes to interdependence, is we recognize that the lie that this person's going to spend the rest of our life, that we will spend it together, is a fantasy. Man, I hope it comes true. I do. Like, I want that for all of us. But the truth is this. A truly loving, authentically adult, mature person will say to you, I can only promise you today. I don't know who I'm going to be tomorrow. But what I do know is this. I will wake up each day and ask myself, am I still in this relationship? Am I still willing to make relationship deposits into this space? And if I am, I'll stay in the relationship and I'll keep doing this. But I may wake up one day and decide I'm not. And think of it, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 60, 80 years old, do you have the exact same thoughts and beliefs over every 10-year span? Of course not. You have grown and matured, and you probably maybe changed political parties, all these different things. All these beliefs you've had have grown and changed completely. So how can you expect somebody to ride that wave and to always have their morals and values, needs and wants, negotiables and non-negotiables align perfectly with yours so you can always have relationship deposits? That's a fantasy. All we can guarantee is today. And each person, once they do the morals and values, needs and wants, negotiables and non-negotiables, just like this intersection, some might see this intersection much smaller. In other words, they want a lot of autonomy in their relationship. Others, this might be really big where they do a lot of hobbies together, like everything just really lines up. They want a lot of shared space. These are all the things that get decided, that require functional interdependence, but those can change. Think of relationships. Many times relationships start off where we have a huge shared space, and then we go through a season where, man, that space, we are not on the same page. What's our moral and value on that? Do we ride it out? Do we give grace? I don't know. I'm not the moral police. It's your life. All I do is advocate that you know these things so you can navigate this as best as possible. But navigate it in truth. And the truth is this. Nobody ever mistreats us. unless we allow it. There's tons of poor treatment out there. But we allowed them into this shared space. We must take ownership of that. We must look at how our childhood experiences and the trauma we haven't healed has created a dynamic where we allowed this type of treatment, where we were attracted to somebody who had this in them. They may not have shown, like the narcissist, everyone go, oh, what about narcissist, sociopath? Well, okay, I don't disagree that they're crafty, but how did they get past us? Because we don't teach these things in schools, because we don't know that it's our job to be responsible for our interdependence and our functional relationships. And so we've all learned this codependent model where it's dependent upon the other person. We just did the best we could with where we were, but we're still responsible. We're not to blame. You can't be blamed for doing something or allowing something that you weren't even aware of was a problem. And, not but, and we are responsible. It's both. It's not one or the other. But means I'm negating the first part, right? It means you're not to blame, but, so that what that means is, oh, I'm just lying, you are to blame. And because I said, but, you're responsible. No, that's not how it works. We are not to blame, and we are responsible. It's both. It's a key distinction. That's why I use that. If you listen to my videos, I'm really making a point of that. The difference between but and. We are not to blame, and we are responsible. It's both. If you live with the but, you are choosing a life of purgatory. You will always attract dysfunction, codependence, pain, narcissism if you get stuck with the but. Well, I did, but it's them. This is what you are advocating for this. And I don't want that for you, but it's your life. I will let you choose. Maybe that's your moral and value. Look, there's so many benefits we get from being the victim and blaming everyone else. I get it. I lived that way for decades and made, lots of women pay for how I set up dynamics that allowed them to treat me poorly, and I could blame them. It worked really well. So I get the attraction to it. Ultimately, it almost cost me my life, because I was living. The reason I was so depressed and miserable, and this is what causes everyone's depression, anxiety, every illness and disease, is we're not living in our morals and values, our needs and wants, negotiables and non-negotiables. We're destroying ourselves. And so we're literally eating ourselves emotionally from the inside out, and that's what causes illness and disease. We are making ourselves sick. So, what's the solution? How do you turn this all around? Well, my personal belief, I want you to hold on to yours. If you've learned about codependence, throw it all out the window. Not literally, but it's been my experience that if you don't know who Pia Melody is and you don't know her descriptions on how codependents work, then you are vastly handicapped in your understanding of codependence and your ability to create interdependence and love. So my suggestion to you, I personally feel these two books, Facing Codependence and Facing Love Addiction, are two books that no person should ever be allowed to go on a date until they read these two books. When you read Facing Love Addiction, you're going to be like, oh my God. You'll see everything I talk about, how we're all codependent, how all these dynamics are manipulative. These bring you into truth and reality. If you want love, if you want a functional, interdependent relationship, it must be based on truth and honesty. If you are using, all those mechanisms I brought up in this video, you can't create that. The other suggestion is, yes, my book. And yes, it's self-promoting. That's because I haven't seen another book that walks you through how to discover your childhood trauma and your worst day cycle, which is creating your attraction to codependence and all of these dynamics. And so that's why I suggest you pick up a copy of my book, Your Journey to Success. Again, I encourage everyone to go to my codependence playlist. And there are 3 videos. They all start out, Codependence Recovery. and then you'll see morals and values, needs and wants, negotiables and non-negotiables. I also encourage you to go to my Worst Day Cycle playlist. There are 5 videos. They all start off with, reclaim your authentic self by becoming trauma-informed. They are numbered 1 through 5. If you can't see, they're on the bottom right of the thumbnail are the numbers. If it's blocked by something, if you read the description of all the videos, they tell you which video is 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Those will walk you through the basics of my book. If you don't want to buy my book and pay the money for it, that's fine. Go watch those videos. You get a general outline, not the full process. But those series of videos, those 3 books, will give you the foundation that you need to create a healthy, functional, interdependent relationship to start healing and recovering from the codependence that we've all been raised with, that is prevalent in our society. If you think this information will help somebody, please share it. If you'd like to leave me your comments, please do. And as always, enjoy the journey.